Definitive technology, what obsession sounds like. Pretty fitting motto for this company that has been around since 1990, pumping out some serious hi-fi speakers ever since. The BP9000 series is no exception to that motto either. So let's dive into my review of the DefTech speakers I've had in my home theater. Stay tuned until the end of the video to see how you can win a ruipro 8K fiber optic HDMI 2.1 cable for your setup that I'll be giving away. Hey guys, welcome back to Life of Bliss. My name is Kyle, and today I'm going to be going over my impressions of a complete theater setup by Definitive Technology, which includes 4 of the BP9060 Towers, 4 of the A90 Atmos toppers, and the CS9040 Center channel. Now, a quick overview of my system. I am running a full Emotiva setup with the RMC1L processor, the XPA DR3 for my LCR amplifier, and the XPA7 for the surrounds and Atmos speakers. All of my content was run either through a Roku Ultra or the Zappiti Pro 4K player and played back over the Samsung Q90T. Now, ever since moving from my last home, I've been missing a lot of the LEDs that I had installed throughout the basement and the bar area. Well, my friends at Govee helped me out with that and sent over a few of their products to light up the basement. First, they sent their immersion LED backlight, which uses a camera and a series of LED strips to mimic colors seen on the TV screen. This is some pretty cool tech, especially for those vivid animated movies with lots of bright colors. They also sent out a few of their new Lyra floor lamps. Now, these are great for mood lighting and have a pretty cool effect by illuminating the wall they are pointed towards. With both of these products, you can connect them to your smartphone and control several effects, colors, and functions. There are several scenes to choose from, such as sunset and ocean colors, but my favorite has to be the romantic setting for date night. If you guys are interested in putting some smart LED lighting in your room from Govee, I'll leave some links down in the description below. But now back to the DefTechs. A quick overview of what makes these BP9000 series speakers special is their bipolar design, which is probably why they named it the BP series. Each of the 9060 Towers have a pair of 4.5-inch woofers and a 1-inch aluminum tweeter that is front firing, as well as a single 4.5-inch woofer and 1-inch tweeter on the back side of the enclosure. DefTech calls this setup a forward-focused bipolar array in which both the front and rear speakers are powered in sync with each other. This is supposed to give a natural sense of sound depth and decay in a room compared to a normal front-firing speaker. These towers also have a powered 10-inch subwoofer and 2 passive radiators, which I'll be going over in just a little bit when I go over how they sound. First, let's touch on the looks of the speaker. I'm kind of torn whether I love them or just kind of indifferent about them. And that's not to say that they're not good looking or well built. They've got these aluminum trim rings and aluminum base on here that look very nice. The fabric that circles the entire speaker, they're nice and slim. You'd almost not know they were a speaker without any drivers showing. And I think that's probably part of my hang-up. I really enjoy seeing the tweeter design, the woofers move. I just like seeing the speaker in action. So part of that is missing here with me. Now, this would be an awesome setup in a living room that you're looking for like a stealth look with the slim design, the no speaker showing. If you're not really looking for something to jump out and say, hey, I'm a big speaker, the BP9000 series is probably going to be a good option to look at. And also, you're not going to be getting the neighbor kids coming over trying to poke in all your speaker cones because you can't see any. And the wife won't be able to sit there and nag going, oh my God, those speakers are terrible looking right in the middle of our living room. If that sounds like you, just show your wife this picture and say, could always be worse. But overall, while I do find the design nice and the build quality top-notch, I'd like to see what's underneath all that fabric. I've had this set up in my room for a few months now, and I've listened to several concert discs and music, TV shows, and movies, including more Moana than any one man should have to endure.
I know it's unlocked, the hate is the part. When you stare at a demigod, what can I say?
Now, if there is one takeaway that I've had from experiencing these speakers, it would be, and this is hard for me to say, but it would be that I don't miss having a subwoofer. And by that, I mean a dedicated subwoofer. Obviously, these have a powered 10-inch sub in each one of the towers with 2 passive radiators in there as well. So you do have subs, but it's not like having a dedicated subwoofer in your system. Any system that I've had prior to this, I've had a dedicated subwoofer or 2 or 3. And with this, it's obviously just all built into the towers themselves. any towers that I've had in a previous setup, you don't get that bass like you do from a sub to get that fully immersive experience for music or movies until now. The BP9060 Towers have a generous amount of that sweet bass that we all love. And with 4 of these in the system, I have plenty of headroom to get loud and pretty much shake the whole house when I want to. For 2-channel music using just the front 2 towers, there is still plenty of bass to give you a nice chest thump, and it just gives off a really nice sounding 2-channel setup. And sure, you could add an 18-inch woofer or a larger woofer in the corner somewhere to really fill in that low-end bass. But the thing I like about these BP towers is just how easy they are to set up and have a really great sounding theater. Speaking of setup, the guys at DefTech spent a lot of time dialing in that crossover between the powered subwoofer and the passive speakers up top. I feel like the bass blends incredibly well with the mids and gives off a really smooth sound. Now there is an option to use your receiver to do the crossovers with these speakers by plugging into the LFE input on the back, but DefTech strongly recommends against doing that, and I gotta say, I agree with them. Like I said, they spent a lot of time on this process, and I feel like messing with where those crossover points are between that sub and mids is probably just going to give a worse result. Now you can still tune everything with either Odyssey or Dirac Live or whichever tuning program that you have to give you a smoother response, but that crossover is probably best just left where it's at from DefTech. Setup is extremely easy and just involves plugging in the speaker inputs on the back and switching the settings for your speakers to large on your receiver. This could probably be improved with a little EQ, but without any outside tuning, 4 of these towers have given a strong response in my room, even down low. Now for a dedicated theater room, I would probably look into adding some larger subwoofers just to fill in that ultra low bass and just to give a more immersive experience. But for a living room setup, these things rock. Now you'll notice I have these speakers pulled out from the walls a little bit. They used to be back in that recessed area, but when they were back there, they just never quite sounded right. To be honest, they sounded like crap.
Well, it sounds like crap, right?
Now to be fair, I don't think most speakers probably would have sounded good in that recessed area, but especially with these BP9000 series speakers, I think placement is really important. And once bringing those out and giving those room to breathe, it really opened up the stereo imaging and gave the front stage a much bigger sound. Now the best way I can describe what these bipolar speakers did for my personal listening experience, it kind of transferred the sound a little further back than what I'm normally used to hearing. It just sounded like the sound was coming from just a little further away, and it really gave for a pretty lively sound stage up front. So these are some extremely crisp and accurate speakers that I've really enjoyed my experience with. And while these give off some bass like no other tower that I've ever heard, the 4.5-inch mids do not have quite the impact that I'm used to. Now, that being said, I am used to 12-inch woofers and 6.5-inch mids in each one of my towers, so I can't really fault DefTech with going with a smaller design and a smaller speaker. I think they've designed an incredibly capable tower at just 6 inches wide. For me, there just wasn't quite the impact that I'd normally get from male voices or that fuller sound from explosions like I'm used to hearing. Kind of a small thing to nitpick, but it is there. Another thing that you're going to have to be conscious of is each one of these towers has to have an outlet to plug into for the onboard subwoofer amp. Now on your front wall, that's probably not going to be a huge issue. You can grab a power strip for your TV and your other equipment up there, and you should probably have 2 extra plugs to plug in each tower up front. If you're using these 4 surrounds like I am, you'll not only have to have speaker wire ran, which I'd get a little creative with, but you'll also have to make sure that you have an outlet to plug in for each one of these surrounds. Now the last thing I could see being a fault in this design is the inability to fine-tune the placement of your subwoofers since they are built into the towers. Normally you'd either do a subwoofer crawl or take multiple measurements with the sub placed in different areas in the room to see which is going to give you the best result in your main listening position. Here, you're kind of limited to where the best stereo image is going to be for your front 2 towers, as well as where your surrounds need to be if you're using them for surrounds. This can create problems because you're not getting the best spot for the subwoofer to be, and when using multiple subs, you can be creating nulls in your main listening position. To help with this, you can use your receiver or processor to fine-tune the distance between the speakers and your main listening position to help align the subs. This will make sure there aren't any canceling out issues and nulls created in your main listening position. So while these speakers are extremely easy to set up and have a great crossover between the subs and mids, you will need to do a little bit of fine tuning to get the most out of your towers. Moving on to the center channel, the CS9040 utilizes the same 4.5-inch mids and 1-inch tweeter that the 9060 Towers do, as well as an 8-inch passive radiator on top to help out with some bass response. Using the same drivers as the Towers means that it can blend flawlessly with the 9060 Towers, and the low profile design means that it can be easily integrated into nearly any system. Now, DevTech does make a 9060 version of this center channel, which includes a powered 8-inch driver on top instead of the passive radiator like the 9040. But to be quite honest, I don't know that that really would have added too much to the experience here, especially with the two 10-inch powered drivers in both the Towers. So if I were you, I'd probably save a couple $100, stick with the 9040, and rely on your Towers for the low-end duty. But like I mentioned, using these same drivers as the Towers made this a very cohesive front stage and made watching movies a very enjoyable experience. Now on to the A90 Atmos up-firing speakers up top here. Now these are actually the first up-firing speakers that I've utilized in a system. In my last theater room, I had in-ceiling Atmos speakers, which by the way is an awesome experience. If you are building a serious home theater room and you are not putting Atmos speakers in, you are really missing out on a huge sound upgrade. So the design of these A90 Atmos speakers are pretty genius in my opinion. They don't have any speaker terminals here on the back with speaker wire that you have to snake up your tower. There's no different shaped speaker sitting on top that just kind of looks out of place. Now these things were pretty well thought out by Definitive Technology. These actually have a proprietary plug right here on the back, and these modules just sit right on top, plug in, separated by this nice piece of aluminum trim, and it looks like they should have been there from the very start. To plug these in, you actually have your controls down at the bottom, or your speaker terminals down at the bottom where all the other controls are. So it's nice and easy, and like I said, it's a very clean look, and you don't have wires running up the backside of your speaker. And if you don't have these A90 up-firing speakers, the Towers come with these aluminum plates that sit right up top and hide the connection. In my opinion, other manufacturers should be taking note. This is how you should be integrating up-firing speakers onto your Towers. Now, while the fit and finish of these A90s is excellent, the performance left a bit to be desired. Now, part of the problem is my room. With these beams in my ceiling here, I'm not probably getting the best sound that I could, as you would with a flat ceiling, but I did the best I can with the space that I had. But for me, I just wasn't getting a lot of that overhead sound that I was with an in-ceiling speaker. Now, another thing that I did like with the A90s is they do utilize the same 4.5-inch woofer and 1-inch tweeter as the Towers do, so you're going to get a very similar sound signature with this system. Now, when using these for Atmos heavy content, like I said, it wasn't truly an overhead sound for me. I felt like a lot of the sound was just coming up a little bit higher on the front soundstage here versus overhead, like true overhead Atmos speakers, but I did get some of that effect just depending on what the scene was. Overall, I would highly suggest using in-ceiling speakers for your Atmos experience, but if you aren't able to do that, or you really just want an easier solution than cutting some holes in your ceiling and chewing on sheetrock dust for the next week, give the A90s a try. They do add to the movie experience, just not as much as the in-ceiling speakers would. So the BP9000 series packs a huge punch and value when you consider each of these Towers comes with their own powered subwoofer. Listening to two-channel music has been an absolute blast, and while you don't need the extra Towers for the surrounds, you could probably get away with the 9040 or 9080 series and have a similar experience. But if you're like me, a little extra bass is never a bad thing. If you spend a little extra time just dialing in your distance and time alignment, you're going to double your subwoofer output by having 2 more powered subwoofers in your system. So in my opinion, these speakers are going to work great in a living room theater, such as what I have going on here, or a family room or living room that you'd like to double as a 2-channel listening area and not have something jumping out saying, look, I'm a big speaker. Like I said, these are a very elegant design, super simple to set up. The crossover design is already set up out of the box. So if you're looking for something like that, I would take a hard look at the BP9000 series from Definitive Technology, and I'll be leaving links to these down in the description below. And if you guys have made it to this point, this is your chance to win a ruipro 8K fiber optic HDMI 2.1 cable that's 15 foot long. ruipro offers some of the best fiber optic HDMI cables on the market right now that can transmit 8K 60Hz and 4K 120Hz signals which the newer generation of gaming consoles are doing right now. I've been using one of these ruipro HDMI cables for a while now, and while I don't have a newer gaming system, I have been using some higher bandwidth content such as Gemini Man, which is 4K at 60 Hertz, and there have been zero issues so far. And actually, my friend TechnoDad has done some signal testing on these, which I will leave a link to down in the description below. Now, to win this cable, you will need to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment down below. And it can be anything you want down there. It can be your favorite emoji. It can be what you think of the DefTech speakers, or it could be a story from high school that has somehow shaped you into the person you are today. I think mine would probably be the day after taco night when the baseball coach decided to test the strength of our abs by walking across them. I'll let you use your imagination for the rest of that story. I'm going to be giving you guys 2 weeks to enter, so be sure to comment down below, and also be sure to have your email address updated. That is linked to your YouTube account. That's how I'm going to be contacting you, and I'll also be posting it on the community tab on my YouTube page as well. And don't think you're going to post 1,000 comments down below and increase your chances of winning. The comment selector that I'm using is only going to recognize your screen name once, so one comment's going to be enough. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the BP9000 series speaker review from Definitive Technology. I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you soon. You going to say goodnight?
Good night.
Good night. Hey, what do you think of these Definitive Technology speakers?
Oh, no.
You don't know?
No.
Are they pretty good?
Yeah?
What's your favorite song to listen to on these?
Now phone.
The Maui song?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good one. I believe that. All right. Good night, buddy.
Good night, Emotiva.